started with Technovation webinar number 2, which is on the marketing plan. Marketing plan consists of 3 modules, and it covers the key elements that you'll need for the marketing plan, which is an integral part of the business plan. So we'll go over branding, visual and logos, and the actual market plan, which is strategy and assessment today. So let's get right into it. In Marketing 1, you will do 3 things. You'll do a little bit of work to understand and identify your brand, and then you'll create 2 key deliverables, which are the name of your business and your positioning statement. So the positioning statement is important because you'll use it in almost every part of the actual business plan. So it's a place where you want to make sure you spend a good amount of time. So you can begin the lesson with just helping them understand what marketing is. And then Technovation has a really great video on their website curriculum called What is Branding? It goes a little bit through the history of Coca-Cola and how it became an international brand, but it helps them understand conceptually what elements are included when we talk about branding, which simply put is the idea that if your app was a person, the brand is the personality of your business. That includes a lot of things, facts about your brand, as well as emotional attributes that people who use your brand attribute to it. So you can kind of go through this and walk them through a couple of examples. So a good thing to do, especially after you watch the Coke video, you can also do this with a few other brands that you're sure that they're comfortable with, is talk about brands you already know. Have them describe those brands, which they should be able to do pretty easily, and then go through the exercise of who is the kind of person who drinks Coke? Who is the kind of person who wears Nike? So for these huge multinational brands, that can be a little vague because it's almost everyone. So after you go through some big multinational brands, you might want to also go through a more specific brand. You can choose something you know that they're familiar with. Something that worked well for me was I went through Adidas and Chanel and talked about how those are both well-known brands, but different people want to use them. Or if you have your list handy of your competitors from the competitive market research, you can try to go through one of those competitors if you know a lot about them. The idea being helping them understand the emotional attributes that are attributed to branding. So after you do that, you want to sort of understand your brand benefits. So you go back to the market research outline, which was your competitor analysis and consumer research, your interviews and surveys that you did as a part of Business 2. You should have a lot of these questions already answered, but it's good to revisit them here because the answers that you found during your interviews, your surveys, and your competitive analysis inform how the teams will talk about their brands going forward. So revisit these questions, and that should lay the groundwork for the next step, which is identifying your target market. This was something that we ran into a lot of trouble with on our teams, but also anecdotally talking to other teams that were at the pitch event. We heard a lot of, who's your target market? Well, we want everyone to be able to use our brand. So something that worked for me that I hope will work for other people is I said, okay, everyone is a lot of people. So I started with just a big circle on the blackboard, as big as the blackboard could get. And I said, this is the whole world. And you can see that here in the concentric circles that I've made. This is the whole world. The point of this exercise being, we're trying to quantify who the target market is. So who will buy the product? So first you go through, do they speak the language our app is offered in? Do they have an Android? And those are kind of the who. How much money do they make? Where do they live, probably? And after you get those basics down and have put some at least ballpark numbers against them, then you can move into the why. With why, you get into age and gender, which sort of goes through what lifestyle needs does your app meet. And then you move into the really specific aspects of who exactly needs or wants your app and why. This took a little while for my group, and if you have internet access in the room that you're using, I encourage you to just do this real time. Have them, if their app will be in Ukrainian only, have them look up the number of Ukrainian speakers in the world so that you have that number to start with. Because this will help when you get to the growth numbers and when you have to sort of identify the number of users in years 1 through 5. Having this groundwork on your target market size will be really helpful. So once you've identified a general number for your target market, or at least a ballpark person, you can go into the brainstorming activity. So this is now using the same thought exercise about who is the person who wears Adidas or wears Chanel. Describe them with adjectives. So you want to do this with your brand. So have them work in pairs, probably. Have them write about 20 adjectives that describe their brand. And then narrow that down. Hopefully there'll be some overlap between your two pairs. But if there's not, then have them work together to kind of narrow it down to 3 to 5. Once you get to those 3 to 5 like core adjectives for your app, you should sort of mull them over, write them down, and then use that to inform the name of your business. The idea being that those adjectives should be cues for whoever your target user are, and is a way to communicate to them very simply. So now you have your target market, you have a little bit about your brand personality, and you should have your brand name. So once you have that, then you can move into the positioning statement. So like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to overstate the value of the positioning statement because you'll use it in almost all 6 parts of the business plan. So what is a positioning statement? A positioning statement is a description of your target market, as well as a picture of how you want your users to see the brand. So, said another way, it's where you fall in the competitive landscape. So if your industry was a grid, it's the scatter plot of where you are in relation to where other brands that you compete with live. You don't want to confuse this with your mission statement, which you wrote in Business 1. In Business 1, we talked about a mission statement, which is a higher level, sort of 30,000 foot view of the goals of your company. A positioning statement should be talk about price, location, how consumers reach you, and why you're better than the competition. So to make that differentiation a little more clear, I put together these comparisons. So, for example, Volvo, which is hopefully a well-known automobile company, their mission statement is driving prosperity through transport solutions. So they never even actually say car in this mission statement. This is their high-level abstract goal for the company in the long term. But their positioning statement, which helps consumers and industry leaders understand where they believe they live in the competitive landscape, is for upscale American families, Volvo is the family automobile that offers maximum safety. So this tells us a little bit about the income level of their consumers and what exactly is they're looking to sell, as well as their point of differentiation. So what makes Volvo special is its safety rating. So I have a couple other examples here that you can go through with your teams, but I just wanted to sort of highlight the difference here and hopefully that will help your teams understand how to write the positioning statement a little bit better. So there's 4 parts to a good positioning statement. It's your product and why it's special, your target market, which you have just identified, the competitive landscape, which you have from business to, and why you're better, and the promise that you make and why we can believe it. So if you go back to the Volvo example, the promise that they make is safety. Why can we believe that? We can believe that because Volvo spends a ton of money on crash testing and marketing the results of that crash testing. There's also a lot of word of mouth that has brought them goodwill over the years. So you'll use all these pieces to create your positioning statement. So I have a template that I put together for the positioning statement. It is here. It just has some additional questions. And you'll have that link in the PowerPoint document. So, once you create your positioning statement, you answer these 4 questions, and you write your actual sentence, then you're done with Marketing 1. So before I go on, I'll pause for a second to see if there are any questions. You can type those in the chat box. You can unmute yourself. Okay, so we don't have any questions, so I'll move on to Marketing 2. For most Americans, I think this is pretty intuitive, so I didn't put together a ton of stuff, just hopefully some visuals that'll help you. Marketing 2 is visuals and logo, which includes choosing a color scheme, a font, and creating a logo. So here's the color emotion guide. You can use this to have a discussion with your girls. Take the adjectives that you listed in Marketing 1 as your sort of core adjectives about your brand and see where they fit on this color emotion guide, right? So if you said that your brand is about strength and trust, but you have originally decided that you want your app to be primarily red, this is the place where you can sort of guide the conversation. There should be enough brands in each of these colors that they've seen. So hopefully you can guide this conversation about, do the colors that we have in mind match who we think our brand is as a personality? From there, you can go, after you've picked your main color, your one main color, then you can move to your color scheme. So this is just a little really basic branding color theory to show how you can get from one color to that 2 or 3 main brand colors that you're going to want. So complementary colors usually signal alertness. Analogous colors usually signal calm, as well as monochromatic. Triad is bold or energetic, and split complementary is a good way to show contrast. So have them pick some accent colors, and just go from there. I would say try to keep them to 2 or 3 colors. We saw a lot of rainbow apps last year that it can be just a little bit distracting from a design perspective. So show them this and kind of sort of try to veer them towards a professional looking design. This is just a reiteration of what I just said, but it can help guide the conversation with your girls if you're having trouble. Also, don't forget to look at what colors do your competitors use. If you have decided that your app should be orange and you've identified 4 competitors and 3 of them are using blue, that's something to think about, because that sort of suggests that the industry has already chosen a color. And if you want to go against that, you should be able to understand and talk about why. The next is font. So font is pretty straightforward. I found this infographic which kind of shows different types of font and the adjectives that are associated with it. I think we have, serif fonts are a more historical or formal font. And sans serif fonts are more or less the fonts of the internet. So you're most likely to use a sans serif font, but just a couple things for them to keep in mind. It should be easy to read. It should match the mood of your brand. If your brand is very serious and educational, you should probably not be using Comic Sans. And make sure it's compatible with App Inventor, because you don't want that to be a hindrance down the road. So now you've got colors, you've got font, and now you've got to decide on a logo. So there's 3 types of logos, and this is just straight screenshots from the Technovation curriculum. They've done a nice job giving an example of a major company and then a past Technovation example. So again, just have them brainstorm to sketch a few logos out. They don't all need to do this individually. They can do it together if one person's a better drawer or is better at Photoshop or design. But have them collaborate on what they want the logo to look like, or have them delegate the logo to one person. And just remember to keep it simple. Remind them of how small the logo is going to be on an iPhone before they get too detailed. And ask them the question of what do they want people to see what do they want people to think when they see this logo? It's also worth going back to your 3 or 5 main branding adjectives when you're creating the logo to make sure that whatever picture you come up with, whatever logo you decide on, matches those adjectives. And that's it for marketing 2. So I'll pause again. If people have any questions. Good. Marketing 3. So marketing 3 is the key section of the marketing lessons, and it's probably the second, maybe the first most important aspect of the overall business plan. So you'll have the business model and you'll have the marketing plan. And those two things make up the more than half of what you'll be graded on for the overall business plan. So this is what you'll need to include in your marketing plan from the business plan checklist that we went over in the business webinar. And the first aspect is goals. So to set your goals. So go back to your competitor analysis and make sure that you can answer all of these questions. Hopefully you've got a little bit of this information already. But what can we measure about your competitors' businesses? How many users do they have? How many downloads, revenue? What languages is the app offered in? How many years have they been in business? This is really anything you can find that's quantifiable about them on the internet. This is going to help you answer the question, where will our app be in 5 years from now? So you want to create 2 or 3 marketing goals. So I've got examples of goals here, and how you quantify those goals. So it's downloads, it's social media activity, and it's financial. So these are some examples of quantified marketing goals. So you want to make sure your goals are measurable. So first have them brainstorm on sort of the kind of goals they want to set, and then work with them to make sure they're quantified. A way to help them answer the question of if the goals are realistic and if they're quantifiable is answering these 4 questions in number 2. So I have created a marketing plan outline, which I'll pop over to here. So you can put your goals in here so that they're written somewhere. We talked a lot about the importance of recording the written work as you go. And then you can go through these 4 questions and say, does our goal meet? And can it answer this question? Yes or no? If you're saying no to more than the question above, you probably need to revisit the goal, revise it, and make it a little more specific. So once you have your marketing goals, then you can move into your strategy. So how can you achieve these goals over the course of the life of your business? So we do this by analyzing the 4 P's of marketing. So product is pretty simple. What is your app? Place. Where can people download your app? Also very simple. It's the Google Play Store. So really the biggest elements of a marketing strategy are price. So how much will users pay for each part of the app that they use? And promotion. Promotion is how people will find out about your app, how people will come to use different aspects of your app, different services within your app, and how they will engage with your app at a deeper level. So here, you want to work through as many promotional strategies as you can. One thing that we heard in, I think, almost all of the pitches last year was our main marketing strategy is to share information about our app with our friends on social media because it's free. And there's maybe a little bit of misconception about the reach that you have on your personal social media page. So go through discounts with them, the opportunity to drive trial for the product. Talk to them about paid search. So paid search is two things. Paid search can be becoming the number 1 or number 2 hit on Google when someone searches something, or there's also paid search within social media now, which is basically paying to move your sponsored post up the algorithm ladder. So those are two good options, and then they also have mentioned viral media as well, but that I would not suggest being your sole marketing strategy. That would be a bonus marketing strategy, but not your sole. So in the marketing plan outline, there's some more questions to guide this conversation so that you can have some written work done on what your marketing strategy is during this lesson before you write the business plan. So after you have written the marketing plan, the marketing strategy, excuse me, then you can think about the assessment. So marketing assessment is how you measure if the strategy was successful. So it's comparing those goals to what you've accomplished. I've put the top 5. The most common app metrics are number of downloads, time spent within the app, amount of sales, obviously, App Store ratings, and social media likes. So I wouldn't say that this is a really heavily graded part of the Technovation challenge, but it will help on the entrepreneurship side if they can have a well thought out connection between each one of their 2 to 3 goals that they identify and how they plan to measure it. So if they don't have a way to measure it through one of these metrics, then it's going to be a lot harder for judges to see these as viable marketing goals. The other thing that this will help with is when you build the revenue model, you can use this to help inform your growth, and it'll make the overall business plan that much stronger. So that's it for marketing. It seems not so intense as the business session was, but this is a lot more abstract for the girls, so they can struggle with this, and it might take a little time to get to this place with some teams, depending on the language level and also the sort of understanding level of the concepts. So don't forget you've got the Ukrainian curriculum translated as well, and lean on that where you need to, and lean on teams that did it in the prior year, and reach out and ask questions. So with that, the marketing seminar is finished, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for coding 1. Thanks.